Good morning, everybody. I may look kind of tired because I'm exhausted on this Microsoft journey for the last 7 years, right? So that's the reason I'm really tired. But I was very happy to see Thomas Kern up here because it's great to see additional vendor to come into the Microsoft world because it's a great solution, great product. My goal today is to take you to a quick journey of DataON and show you for the last 7 years what we have done and really kind of switch out to a panelist. I'm going to ask some really tough questions in real life deployments because we have deployed over 200 clusters in the last 3 to 5 years, and each of them has challenges. Nothing is easy, right? But we'll share that challenges with you guys. So I'm Howard. I'm from the US headquarters, and I'm with DataON. And this is the 3rd year I've been here. Every year I see different people and different faces, and I'm really excited to see the excitement for Microsoft. So agenda, what has happened since the last time I'm here, about a year ago? What are some of the DataON value and the validation that we see in the marketplace, why we believe Microsoft, Azure Stack HCI is going to take over the world, and look at some of the software we did, some customer use cases. Then we'll do a panel discussion. I'm going to use some real customer deployment and real questions to ask these panelists about their answer. Okay, to start, since last year, we deploy S2D in a ship. Right? We deploy in ships, we deploy in the field, small business, remote offices, but you can see the application of this software-defined storage, how really you could take it to different places in the world. And this is a 2-node that runs the entire shipping. This is a fishing company that has 20 sites in Alaska, and they use S2D as a way for them to do storage. Since last year, a lot of changes in technology, right? Technology which will drive the adoption of new solution. Hybrid cloud clearly is one of the biggest change. Ability to have an on-premise solution, but deliver hybrid services. New processors, right? Intel launched a new processor now, 2nd generation processor and storage class memory for 2019, and DataON's hardware in our platform supports all Gen 2 solution now, plus persistent memory. And I bought a couple of those here for you guys to look at. Storage SSD, leveraging Optane, NVMe, or QLC, which is coming up later this year from Intel, replacing hard drives. All these are technology innovation and inflection point that will change how we design the solution that we are today. Design form factor. You saw a beautiful form factor of Thomas Kern for a microcluster. So DataON has 1U, 2U, 4U boxes, and it took me about a year to custom design this Kepler 47 Gen 2, which we launched today in the US, and you're the first to see it because our press releases right now is being loaded onto the website. Management, making sure that there's a good way to manage your cluster and do data analytics, and you'll see quite some of that. Since last year, we grew HCI customer by 30%. We continue to ride this Microsoft curve as a company, and it's been a great journey, and it's exciting for me. Every time I come up here, I'm very excited. We have deployed more than 150 petabytes of S2D HCI worldwide across the board. There's a shift. There's a shift that 50% now is flash and hybrid. Last year was a lot of hybrid with cache and HDD, but we see a shift towards a lot of flash. Why? Because NVMe SSD price is going down, right? Intel's dropping SSD price for NVMe, and it's at parity with SATA pricing now. So why not NVMe? And majority of our 2-node design are all flash, flat. We have now 20 vertical markets, and we have a lot of management features, alerts, ability for you to get emails real time if something happens to your system. So as an admin, you can monitor your system real time. Since last year, I wrote how many? 30 more use cases, right? That's not 30 customers, 30 more use cases across medicals, manufacturing, cloud hosting, nonprofit, financials, across educations. You could just see the adoption of Windows HCI across entire customer segment base. And we'll use all these customers for our discussion. This is a really funny slide. This is the people around the world that download the Must extension on WAC. And we saw people downloading their vSANs, Nutanix. They just want the Windows Admin Center. And these are all the downloads across in 3 months when we launched it across the world, because we could see who downloads the solution. And it's really overreaching across the world. So that's kind of what has happened since last year. And I kind of want to share with you a little bit about some of the customer experience.
Is about 30 minutes north of Atlanta. We have a little over 40 schools and centers, and we have about a little over 40,000 students. Windows Admin Center has made things awesome because it really does allow us to be more efficient. I've been able to essentially consolidate a lot of different tasks that I would do through various tools into one console, like remote desktop, PowerShell, Windows services, the event viewer, failover cluster manager, all these different functions that you'd have to typically use 4 or 5 different tools to do, or more, essentially. They're starting to roll those into Windows Admin Center, and I really do enjoy the fact that it's browser-based. You don't have a clunky interface to deal with that can crash consistently, so being in web-based also makes it a lot easier to use too. When I would use it on my laptop, I would use it to maybe restart a server or remote desktop into a server, run a PowerShell command against the server, maybe restart it even a Windows service. Through my phone, it's more of a, I want to get a snapshot of where we're at. I can easily, just pull up my phone, take a look at the dashboard for our Hyper-converged cluster and just to see what the performance is. Every day we really do use DataON Must. We have it always on in our NOC, so we can get a nice snapshot of the health of our environment. It's been a great management solution for our hyper-converged infrastructure. Must provide some disk mapping that's not in there natively, some historical reporting, and also the call home service is very handy as well. It's nice to be able to just go to have a single pane of glass essentially that manage multiple servers and actually get work done. That's the good thing. It allows you to get work done a lot faster. I really like the fact that Windows Admin Center allows for you to use extensions like Must, because we really do love what Must has provided to us, and it's nice to know that that will continue to be integrated in Windows Admin Center. You need to have something like that because it's great to have performant hardware. It's great to feel good about all that, but if you can't manage it easily, if you're having to essentially use multiple tools to manage the environment, that doesn't really work well for an IT team that's understaffed essentially. So you really want to have a good management interface and alerting interface, and that's exactly what Windows Admin Center must provide for us.
All right. So that was a Cherokee school district, and they now have 2 5-node cluster across 2 campuses, and they're doing great, running the entire production workload, about 40,000 students in a school district. How many people heard of DataON? I've been here 3 years now. Let me just show a hand. All right, not a lot. I have more work to do. We've been around for 30 years as a company in California, and we've been an exclusive Microsoft partner for the last 10 years. What that means is I only know Microsoft. When you ask me about Nutanix, VMware, I would just go blank, go, what? I don't know what VMware is, right? But really, I want to educate the world about Microsoft because we believe it's a great solution. And we want to make sure we add value on top of the solution to deliver to the end user. We have across the spectrum hyper-converged infrastructure, Azure Stack solution for on-premise and hybrid cloud, because we also deliver hybrid cloud services up to the cloud. We always talk to customer through the journey. The name keep on changing. Windows 2012, Storage Spaces. Windows 2016, Storage Spaces Direct. Windows 2019, then you change the name to Azure, Microsoft Azure Stack, right? It's continue that journey to make sure that we have the right solution for our customer. And more importantly, we are committed to the German market. Our partner Access is local. They have an office here in Germany. They deliver on-site spares, on-site solution for Europe. So they have the same level of 24/7 service that DataON deliver to the United States and worldwide. You just issue, you have 24/7 call, you have spare, they could deliver to you within the 4 hour or next day. So we are committed to the German market. I've been here for the last 3 years. and our business continue to grow to service our customer, and we really want our partner access to help you guys to get there. Lots of customers, a lot of customer uses for their Hyper-V across the board, but you can see more and more that HCI is used for SQL cluster now. There's a SQL migration end of life, and a lot of people are using a 2-3 node SQL cluster to run their single cluster. People are using it for VDIs and backup file share. So you can see the same type of software being used for different vertical and application across the board. Really, DataON is really making sure that entire journey for the customer has a complete experience. From the beginning, how we help you plan your solution, to design, to pre-deployment, making sure the workload fits right for you, to post-deployment support across the board. Our goal is to make sure the entire journey of Microsoft and making sure you have the right solution, HCI, for your workload. And Must is really a software we developed to make sure we enhance the experience, having alert, email services, call home services, just like a SAN. That's what you need to do because you are moving away from legacy systems to software-defined storage HCI, and you need to make sure that you have these features. So if something happens, you'll be alert. You have an email, you have an SMS. All these are requirements to make sure we have an enterprise-level application, and Must is the tool that delivers it. So why choose DataON? We have very extensive Microsoft experience. We provide that complete turnkey solution. We have monitoring, and at the end, we provide that entire services. How do we design our solution? We want to make sure all our solutions are bleeding edge. So what that means is we want to leverage the key technology supported by Microsoft, NVMe, second generation RDMA Thunderbolt, Optane, persistent memory. All these are capability that you should take advantage of today because it's available, right? So those capabilities should be designed into your system. You'll see Optane, right? I brought a persistent memory from US. I pulled it off our server that we're already qualifying and delivering, right? These are technology that you can leverage for specific application like SQL workloads. So you can see the benefit of these technology, and you want to make sure you take advantage of it. Ruler form factor, right? Ability to have a ruler form factor where you have SSD in the ruler form factor. So all these are technology innovation that DataON integrate into our solution. We have multiple level solution for you, whether or not it's 1U, 2U, flash, hybrid, but the goal is to make sure you have a choice when you design your solution across the board. We also have 2-node solution, Kepler appliances, where you allow you to have a very simple deployment back-to-back, whether or not it's 1U, 2U, or the mini tower form factor, so you have a complete experience for your edge, for your remote offices, right? All these are deployment support we do. And we are excited that after a year of design, we're launching a Kepler 2-node solution, and this really is focused on remote office, and edge, and IoT. It's already Azure Stack HCI certified. Our goal is you could deploy this in less than 15 minutes, and it should cost less than $10,000 US, right? Plus drive. We delivered this initially as an all-flash solution because based on experience, that's easiest to maintain. You have the best performance, right? These are 25 gig RDMA network, back-to-back, or Thunderbolt, depending on the solution you want. Supports Xeon processor, supports up to 128 gigabyte RAM because you need those for your VM applications. And ultimately, it delivers really great performance across the board. So those are my background about DataON. I'm going to move now to the panelists now. And these are the people that I'm going to ask tough questions about. But these are real questions that you will face as customers, as SIs, or end user, as you look at Microsoft HCI and deployments. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use specific customer deployments to talk about the solution. So first one, Reagan Med, it's a medical office that runs a lot of EHR applications, SQL databases. They bought a 2-node K2N 108, all-flat NVMe P4610s, high endurance cache. Okay? And they migrate everything from a SAN to their solution. Second one is a 2-node, again, is a power utility company that has 20 sites, and they're using it for their robo remote offices, and that's also an all-flash solution. So, first question to the panelists. Why is 2-node a unique advantage or a good platform for Azure Stack HCI for these customers?
Hi, Howard.
Oh.
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few different things that make Azure Stack HCI, I think, unique in its ability to address two-node. Obviously, having a smaller footprint is desirable for remote offices and branch offices, and those kinds of scenarios where if you're going to be deploying multiple locations, then you're very cost sensitive, right? The per unit cost matters more the more systems you're going to be deploying. And so two nodes is very interesting, and there are a couple of technological hurdles, though, that you need to be able to cross to deploy two nodes. One of them, which has been talked about a little bit this morning, is the witness situation, right? So you do need, when you deploy a cluster with, say, 4 or 8 or 16 nodes, you don't really need to worry about quorum very much. With two nodes, you do have to make sure you have an answer for quorum. And if you look at some competing solutions, the quorum answers are actually pretty heavy. It's like, oh, well, you should use this appliance virtual machine, or, oh, you have to actually run that appliance VM in the cloud, and they've got a whole sizing calculator for how to do it. And with Azure Stack HCI, the solution is very lightweight. You can use either a file share, which is like we need just a couple of kilobytes of space, or you can use even just a USB key, which I believe you guys showed at Ignite with your Kepler system. And those are like very easy requirements for getting a two-node cluster to maintain quorum. So that's one example. Nested resiliency is another. Having a lightweight local management solution is another. There are a lot of things you need to make two-node really work, but once you have it, it's super appealing for branch offices because of that lower footprint, lower cost.
Great. So second one is, Carsten, what is the biggest deployment difference between a two-node and a four-node in terms of complexity?
The complexity between two nodes and four nodes. Of course, you have to set up 4 nodes. It's much more expensive. 2 nodes is easier, but I prefer nowadays in 2 nodes the nested resiliency because I need a little bit more resiliency in the system. So with 4 nodes, 2 can fail. If you have 2 nodes, you have to know only one disk in one node and one disk in the other with the model in 2016. So in 2019, you added nested resiliency. That's great. I would like that for more nodes, Cosmos.
I hear you.
So it's a little bit more complex, of course. But if you need more performance, you go with more nodes. And you showed on your slide, you can get really great performance even with 2 nodes. And we know you have to add the data center license to that. So if 2 nodes is it's much less pricey than a 4-node deployment. So I like both very much.
And there's also the networking piece too, right? 2 nodes is sort of the only scale at which you can do like a back-to-back networking. And so you don't even need an Ethernet switch. You can just take the 2 Keplers, for example, and wire them directly into one another with a crossover cable. And that also helps with getting that cost down at 2 nodes.
Can I add to that? So I was, of course, the network is much more easier with 2 nodes. And to be honest, most of the problems we see with storage bases direct are based on networking. And it's not only the rocky IWAP thing that can be educated, but to integrate such a solution in a customer network that is already there is sometimes a little bit challenging because we need high performance between the nodes. And for a 4-node, I would go with 25 gigs or multiple 10 gigs connections, and many customers don't have that. So a 2-node is much easier because you can cross-connect the 2 nodes, really.
Yeah, and typically in DataON, when we design a 2-node design, we always do 25 gig for the east and west traffic because you have to make sure the balance load across. So 25 gig for us is a minimum. And for 4 nodes or more, it's always 40 gig across the board or to 100 gig because if you do NVMe across the board, then you can imagine the type of traffic that goes around the fabric. And for north and south traffic, you go 25 gig, 40 gig up QSFP, or you could do 10 gig, depending on the core fabric, right? So we really want to make sure the networking piece of it is really solid in a S2D design. Next question. This customer chose the medical to use a flat 4600 across, no cache drive, all right, because they believe that's the best solution for them. So Alessandro, how do you choose between the different drives, between the Intel Sorry, we're an Intel-based solution, so all our servers made by Intel, all our SSDs Intel, so we know a lot about how to design the Intel solution. So Alessandro, why did the customer choose this, and what's the difference between these technologies?
So first, it's a 2-node cluster, right? So cache capacity. So if you buy NVMe for cache, you're not adding any capacity. And for a 2-node microcluster, we have limit amount of slots. So you want to maximize your capacity. So a flat tier, mainly with NVMe, would make sense. Performance-wise, the P46 and P4510, they're really good drives. The difference is on endurance. So if you're a little bit write-heavy, you would like to have a higher endurance drive in this case. And again, a 2-node cluster with limited slots, you may not have the opportunity to over-provision capacity and choose technically a cheaper or drive.
Believe it or not, choosing the right drive is very important in the S2D design to make sure that based on your workload, whether or not you need to have a very high endurance cache tier or a flat tier. These are our tests and benchmark that DataON have done numerously to make sure that when we have the right workload, we have the right type of media to support that workload. So these are decision factors. As you guys look at your HCI cluster, you need to make sure you understand the difference between each of the media to meet your workload. OK.
Can I add?
Of course.
To that? So you maybe don't believe it, but the price difference between an S4510 and a P4510 is not there anymore, or very, very small, or they are equal. So buying NVMe at the same price than an SSD, and you get 3 or 4 times more performance, is really the way to go. So look in the internet for the prices. I was surprised how the NVMe's come down. So I would go all NVMe. We have other challenges there. So if you want to do 24 NVMe's in a system, you have to have a lot of lines. But I would nowadays go all NVMe, if it's possible.
Yeah. Adding to that, since you have a high-speed networking there, it makes sense to first do all NVMe, because you're getting all the performance out of your network and your storage. And to quote to you, it's always to have a balanced design. So if you will leave performance out if you do not balance, either on number of cores, networking speed, and storage. If you don't have that, then you find other bottlenecks along the way. OK. Second one, it's a hybrid design, which we have the HCI 212. It's a balanced capacity optimized. Washington State University, it's a huge university, and they have, I think, now 3 sets of 5-node cluster across multiple campuses to do redundancy, but they want hybrid. And because they want to make sure they have capacity for file share, but they still get to run some SQL workload in the cache tier. So it's really, they have multiple type of workload in the mix, in their design, so they didn't make sure that they have a hybrid environment. Same thing as Bennington is a bowl manufacturer, and they're the one that decided to replace their iSCSI SAN, and because they have multiple locations, they need to have a hybrid solution. So the question is, I guess you guys answer, when a customer chooses between a hybrid and all flash, what are some of the key factors?
So one of the things that's always funny for me is I live in Bellevue, and the closest library to my house runs DataON infrastructure. And if you go a little bit further down the street, the closest university to my house is Washington State University, where they run DataON infrastructure. And it feels like even on a Saturday, I can't get away from my work and from DataON infrastructure. I mean, the key difference for hybrid versus all flash is just, well, there's 2, right? And they go hand in hand. One of them is cost, and then the other one is performance. And so it is very, very difficult to compete with the $ per gigabyte affordability of hard disk drives. In spite of what you may have heard, in spite of how much we and many other vendors would love to tell you that all flash is what everyone's doing these days. I mean, you can even just look at what we do in Microsoft Azure, right? We're still buying a ton of hard disk drives because the $ per gig is just impossible to compete with right now. And so if you're looking for bulk storage at the cheapest possible price, you're definitely going to be looking at a hybrid solution where you have a small number of SSDs for caching, and then a much larger number of potentially very large, like 10 or 12 or 14 or 16 gigabyte hard disk drives, terabyte hard disk drives for capacity. On the other hand, that's going to limit your ability to achieve these millions of IOPS that we like to demo, right? And so if you're running like very performance-sensitive applications, like financial firms and their SQL databases, financial companies are very touchy about their SQL databases, then you're going to want to run those on all-flash because the performance is just not something you'll be able to get with hard drives.
I think adding to that is the scale factor. So the more nodes that you have to place, the cost will be a much larger factor there. But if you look at Robo and Kepler, it would be a maze for me that if somebody would do a hard disk drive there. Because the failure rate of a hard disk drive is magnitudes over SSD. And those systems are going to be on office. They're going to be treated as a real server in a data center, cooling, so you need to protect them. And talk about the capacity, QLC rulers, and they're coming. And the smaller one that you can get is an 8 terabyte, and there is a roadmap for a 32 terabyte ruler, so not a long future. So if you look at 1U ruler server, we talk about a 1 petabyte 1U solution coming out NVMe. So that will change the game on cost and performance, and it'll be very hard pressed to not compete against hard disk drive.
So Carsten, I know that in our design, we have done a 2-tier and 3-tier hybrid design. A 3-tier is 2 NVMe for cache, another layer of SATA SSD for performance tier in hard drive capacity. And the reason we designed that is because sometimes the workload will seep out of the cache tier, and you want to make sure the performance is still there. So you have another SSD tier to kind of shield that performance downgrade, right? So we have a 3-tier design. Or a lot of people do a 2-tier design. We have NVMe plus hard drive. From your experience, what are some of the differences between those two different designs in the hybrid?
So you know I love the 3-tier design, and Microsoft doesn't love it as much as I do. Put it that way, Cosmos, we are discussing about that. So you mentioned the price of storage, and HDD are not to beat yet. So maybe in two, 3 years, it's possible. So if a customer needs, for example, 100 terabyte usable space in a storage basis direct design with 4 nodes, you look at how much real performance data they have. You call it the write working set, and it's maybe 10 terabyte. Yeah, you have a lot of data there that is very cold. Yeah, so you don't need flash for that because it's more expensive than HDD. So if you design a 3-tier write, you have capacity drives in SSD. There's all your hot data, and you have then the cold data in HDD. You get a very fast system for your high performance needs, and for the cold stuff that is maybe not touched for half a year. Or we have a file server, I think it's 10 years old. My wife imagined to clean it up. I said, are you stupid? Are you crazy? What time you have to invest to go to all the directories, and sometimes my English is not very correct. Okay. So the time
Kirsten
you have to invest.
is now single and available.
Yeah. She's in the room. I will get heat for that later. No, I'm confused. No, you can't clean it up. It's too much. It's too expensive to do the manual work. So many companies have stuff there. They have to. In Germany, we have a law. You have to have the stuff for 10 years if it's financial. Important. So I love the design. You get the best for your money. You get a very great performance, and you have still a good price per terabyte. And I know Cosmos want to add to that. And if you do a 2-tier design for cache, go with NVMe, not SSD, because NVMe are not more expensive, but the write ratio. So the IOPS and NVMe has in write, it's much higher if you compare to the same SSD.
Yep.
Don't compare the worst NVMe to the best SSD. Of course, there are SSDs that are better than NVMe's, but if you compare the same device types, the NVMe is much better. So I would prefer NVMe with HDD, and I still like the 3-tier design.
Yeah, and I think the main point is that you have a choice, right? Microsoft software-defined storage give you a choice of the right design. You could do a 2-tier, 3-tier, a flat design. But again, you really need to understand how the profile of your workload, and the key is making sure that profile of your workload fits within the design form factor. And this is the uniqueness of software-defined storage.
Just short to add, we have 7 minutes left, to be fair. Or 7, 8 minutes.
Sure.
Just a quick note on that. You said Microsoft provides the choice, right? And that's actually very much our philosophy, is to allow people. You understand your workloads better. You understand your needs, your scenarios, your customers better. Our whole goal is not to restrict the choices, right? And so you can deploy storage spaces direct with 1 or 2 or 3 types of drives with anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 16 nodes. And regardless of how you choose that, all of the features are available. So something like data deduplication is actually available whether you do all flash or whether you do hybrid, whether you do 3-tier. It's not like choosing the types of drives that you're going to use locks you in or out of using specific software features, which I think is an important point.
Very good. I can combine these 2 questions because we get a lot of our customers. We have a lot of 2016 customers who want to now use 2019 because there's a lot of great features. And the customer's questions, what is the best migration path from 2016 to 19? Also, I bought a previous generation Xeon processor. Now I have a Gen 2. Can I add another node with a new processor and still work, right? This is a real question that my customer asks me every day. So what's the answer?
Should I do that? Go. I'm the consultant at customers all the time, right? So you can add different generations of processors in one HCI solution. That's possible. But it's not the best way to do it because we have Hyper-V running there, and you have the problem if a VM is started on a newer processor, Hyper-V prevents you to move it to an older one because maybe the processor commands are not there. So you have to turn on processor compatibility, and there you lose some features of the processors. So these features are like encryption in the processor, or if you don't need that, so if you don't do BitLocker in your VMs, you are completely fine. But if you need those features in the processor, you lose them and they have to be in software. So it's possible to do a mixed setup, but if you have a 2-node cluster, maybe think to buy another 2 nodes, because in 2 or 3 years, the prices are more down for the devices. The CPUs can do more or are cheaper for the same performance. So I would recommend go with 2 more nodes. But to be honest, it's possible to extend such a solution. Yeah?
That's correct. I think that's the right answer because that's how we tell our customer is really understand what you have there. 2 more slides, then we're done, don't worry. Next one, design all flash. This has been very popular where you have a flat NVMe design. We actually don't do flat SATA. We have none of these designs. All our flash solutions, all flat NVMe. So the first one is a professional service. They run an entire car dealership, so they have a lot of databases. So they do a 7-node flat NVMe. Each of them has, I think, 16 drive, 4 terabyte each, flat. Right, no cache tier across the board, and they run their entire workload on top of it. Second one is actually a hospital. A hospital has 2 5-node clusters, all flat NVMe P4500, and they do a cluster set together. Right, cluster set is a new Azure Stack HCI technology, allows you to have 2 cluster with multi-resiliency because you have 2-node failure here, 2-node failure. But if you do a cluster set, it's under the same domain. You could migrate file across. So you can expand your cluster size under the same directory, but you have more resiliency across the 2. So the question first is, from an HCI optimized solution for all flash design, what's the benefit of a cluster set? Because that's been a very big topic for a lot of my customers, big customers.
So I think there's 2 questions in there, right? One of them is about capacity optimized. And so one of the nice things about going with a flat design where you don't have any drives that are serving as cache, it means you're actually able to use every gigabyte of physical storage that you put into the system, right? And so if you put in 10 4 terabyte SSDs, then you are getting 40 usable terabytes of storage that you can then create volumes with some resiliency on top of, right? And so that's I think primarily the appeal. And because of the way that storage spaces does distribute data evenly, sort of sharded into extents, you're going to be wearing those drives out evenly. So it's not like some drives are going to end up being worn out sooner because the particular set of files was hotter. It's going to get distributed anyway because of the way storage spaces works. And if you add additional servers later, the data will get redistributed onto the new servers. So it's really, in terms of having a flat design, it's a way of maximizing how much you're able to actually take advantage of the physical capacity. And obviously, cluster sets is a way for you to scale even beyond the restrictions of a single cluster. And so with like 5 nodes, right, and you add a second 5-node cluster, and you can just, in fact, we regularly test cluster sets up to some pretty high limits. We've tested 1,000 nodes before in one fabric, and it works great.
Yeah, it's a great feature, I think, of a lot of our customers take advantage. Yeah. We actually use Optane, too. We have a design that's 4 Optanes in flat 4510s. And we have probably 4 big customer cluster across. So, Alessandro, why would customers use Optane?
So, just to piggyback on Cosmos, I like to have differentiation on all flash and now NVMe, because sometimes we talk about all flash and just so having a single all flash tier, but if you're using SATA drives, you are limited by the throughput of the SATA protocol. So you're going to have performance bottlenecks when you get that thresholds. So with SATA SSDs, there is still benefits for NVMe cache. If you talk about just a flat tier NVMe, there is very little on the cache design that will add. By adding Optane to NVMe, you should think about the number of devices. Because if you have a by 16 RDMA network, and Optane and our NVMe is a by 4 device. So you want to match the PCI lanes and the throughput that you have on your network. Talk about 100 gigabit network and by 16 design cards, so you match that throughput. That's where you're going to see the real difference on NVMe cache. And the great difference between Optane and P4610 on cache will be endurance, because both are really, really high performance SSDs. P4610 is way better than P4600. But on the caching side, it's about endurance and right throughput. So that's where Optane is going to have a big difference.
And just to really spell it out, he pointed out that NVMe, there's a much higher potential for bandwidth compared to like SATA or SAS SSDs. It's like a factor of 10. I mean, the difference between the most recent SATA protocol and how much throughput you get on the PCI bus is not like a small difference. It's a real game changer, right? If you're packing 24 SSDs into a 2U, and those SSDs are all sitting behind one like SATA controller, it's wasted performance, right? With NVMe, you can really take advantage of all of it.
Thank you guys for your time today. I appreciate it to share your insights into the design and Microsoft software-defined storage. And we're looking forward to chatting with you guys. We're out there. So if you have any question about how to design your workload and why Microsoft, come talk to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Howard.